Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It appears my microphone was muted. Hopefully, everybody can hear me now. But welcome in, everyone. I'm attorney Brian Festa, vice president and co-founder of We the Patriots USA. We also have our good friends at CHD broadcasting this on CHD TV and other platforms across socials. Thank you, Dr. Malone, for joining us. I know people are not on here to listen to me speak, so I'm going to let you get right into it as to what's the latest news regarding the potential, I'll say right now, the potential of the CDC's ACIP disbanding and this lawsuit.
So I just spoke to Bobby. He called me about 15 minutes ago. So I guess that is the latest news. And so there's things that I can say and things that I can't say, as always. The White House has not made a final decision about how to proceed in response to the lawsuit. The challenge in considering appeal to the Supremes is that the docket is extremely full. And they only take about 75 cases a year. And convincing both the Supreme Court and the White House that this case merits inclusion as one of those in a time in which we're having literally hundreds and hundreds of key cases emerge that are central to the interests of the White House is a heavy lift. The secretary is convinced that they can certainly win on the merits of whether or not the ACIP members were qualified. So a final decision has not been made. The option, the very pragmatic option of dissolving the ACIP and then reappointing it after ensuring that there's full compliance, perhaps because it's entirely at the discretion of the secretary what the charter is for any FACA committee and ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is really just another federal advisory committee act, impaneled independent advisory group, with one important nuance that makes it unique in the entire spectrum of FACA committees, which is that it is able to encumber federal funds directly. So these political appointees in voting for the inclusion of products on the Vaccines for Children program directly encumber billions of dollars of federal funding to purchase these vaccine products and have them distributed to children that meet the criteria, which is something like 50% of all children in the United States. So it's a big purchase and it's a big responsibility, the Vaccines for Children program. And it's absolutely necessary to move forward that there be an ACIP because in order to encumber those funds and provide those resources to needy children, because in its wisdom, Congress has impaneled the ACIP to make that authorization, and there is no other. It's ACIP or nothing. To illustrate the point, one of the products early on in this ACIP that was authorized with some controversy for the Vaccines for Children program was this new anti-RSV monoclonal antibody, extended half-life monoclonal antibody. And in theory, under the judge's injunction, funding for that program for providing anti-RSV monoclonal antibodies to newborns and children at high risk for RSV or suffering from RSV, that subsidy is no longer available because of the judge's injunction. So as it stands right now, final decision has not been made. There was apparently some miscommunication yesterday that occurred between Jay Bhattacharya and Kirk Milhound, the chair of the ACIP, in which Kirk believed that he was told, and Kirk is a devout Christian, and I have no question in my mind that Kirk was acting based on no other agenda other than trying to do what he was asked to do. Kirk believed that he had been told that the ACIP was going to be disbanded and then reformed as a workaround, a pragmatic workaround to the long timeline that would be necessary to appeal the injunction, and that he was tasked by Dr. Bhattacharya, the acting CDC director, with notifying all ACIP members, including myself, of this decision, and that we were now free of our FACA obligations, which are non-trivial, by the way. One of those is that we are not to leak documents. Clearly, we have at least one member who has failed to respect that requirement. So that was what was conveyed by Kirk. I happened to be on a plane flight back from Scottsdale, meeting with another attorney named Aaron Seary, and that podcast is about to go live in the next hour or so, I understand. So stay tuned for that. But so I was on the flight and got the email that I should call Kirk as soon as possible. And so upon landing in Reagan Airport, DCA, I called Kirk. He told me what he told me. I reported it on Twitter, essentially verbatim. And then that set off this latest press feeding frenzy, including the eventual at 11 o'clock walk back that was kind of a negotiated statement that I posted on Twitter, that there was a miscommunication regarding this, and that a final decision had not been made. So that kind of brings everybody up to date in the short form. I've skipped all of the drama in between, and I think at this point we'll allow the Wall Street Journal, and the Press, and Reuters, and the Washington Post, and the New York Times to all fill in the blanks on the drama.
Oh yeah, they love that stuff. We're not about drama here. I do want to update our viewers, because I know we have a lot of people, really thousands, that were waiting to hear this announcement. And so I thank you so very much for coming on. Dr. Biss did have to cancel last minute, so I know people were expecting to hear from her as well, because she's also an ACIP committee member. I wasn't sure whether or not, when I was advertising it, whether I should say former ACIP members, because if it indeed is disbanded.
I share your dilemma.
Yeah,
that's why I posted on Forgive the Physics example for those that are not up on string theory and quantum entanglement. My comment was that the ACIP is now Schrodinger's committee. We're not sure if it's live or dead. We would have to check inside the box in order to find out.
Well, that's a good analogy, even though I admittedly completely understand it. But the thing about it is, I'm an attorney, right? And I was taught, going all the way back to law school, that you don't bring a lawsuit unless there's actual harm, actual damages, or you're at imminent risk of harm. And so when I saw this lawsuit and the lawsuit filed by the various states' attorneys general against HHS and the supposed lack of procedural protocol that was followed under the Administrative Procedures Act, that's the claim, that ACIP, the new members, were not appointed correctly according to the AAP, according to the procedures and protocol. However, I need to remind everyone, ACIP stands for Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. It is not a mandate. These are not requirements, and these are not taking away any vaccines.
Well, furthermore, if I can, as made clear by the Supremes in the overturn of Roe v. Wade, it is explicitly the right of the states. I think this is an Article 11 issue. It's explicitly the right of the states to regulate the practice of medicine. It's all in my entire career, this is something that we always get counseled on, is that the CDC doesn't, and the federal government doesn't have the right to tell the states what to do in terms of pandemic preparedness or response or vaccine policy or anything else. And frankly, I celebrate the fact that we have states now that are not moving in lockstep to the CDC and are choosing to make their own pathway forward. I disagree with the policies of Gavin Newsom and his Western State Alliance, and I have participated in political rallies all across Hawaii to try to resist Josh Green's removal of the ability of patients or parents to opt out for religious reasons to the vaccine schedule. They're trying to close it so that there's no exemptions allowed in Hawaii, just like is the case in California.
Right.
But I respect that it's the right of those states to make their own determinations in terms of public health policy. I disagree with the ethics of it. I disagree with the specific policies, but I absolutely agree that constitutionally, and we are a constitutional republic, that they have the right to make those decisions. And the good news about that is that if they move forward like that, just from a purely transactional standpoint, as a vaccinologist, and that dabbles in epidemiology, et cetera, in this space, we're going to 5 years out, 10 years out from now, we're going to be able to compare outcomes in those states versus outcomes in, say, Florida and Texas. And that's a good thing. We can already compare outcomes. For instance, one of the fascinating nuances here is that the Scandinavian countries in Europe, they don't have mandates. They have the small reduced vaccine schedule, much as that the president has directed shall be the recommended schedule by the CDC after, in this January announcement. And yet those Scandinavian nations, even though they don't have mandates, they have better compliance uptake, if you want to, let's put it that way. They have better uptake of vaccines in their population. And even though they have a more abbreviated vaccine schedule in terms of less than half of the number of shots, they have better health outcomes than we have here in the United States at less money. So, if we end up with similar data in 5 to 10 years coming out of a comparison between, say, Florida and California, then we will have a domestic U.S. example that we can all cite, and hopefully we can all learn from. Maybe it'll turn out that California has a much lower incidence of autism than Florida does. Right now, California has the highest rate of autism in the world, bar none. So, they don't seem to be doing something quite right, but this is the nature of the idea of the laboratory for democracy, and the states being the laboratories for democracy in the United States. and that might also be the case for public health. So that's kind of where we are in the argument made. Brian, to be blunt, I was having this discussion with a highly ranking HHS official, not Bobby, late last night as we were discussing what I shall put on our tweet. And as we were kind of grappling with all this, you've got a squeaky wheel somewhere in the background there. Do you have a hamster?
No, I don't hear it on my end.
Okay.
But let me mute myself while you continue to speak.
So, a couple of things. The AAP lawsuit was not formulated by the AAP. The AAP lawsuit was formulated by a law firm that is a liberal or progressive law firm seeking to find a way to, I guess, damage the administration in some way. And they put this thing together and submitted it on behalf of the AAP. And the AAP was glad to go along with that. But this did not originate at the American Academy of Pediatrics. Let's be clear. It originated at a law firm that had political ties and an agenda. The law firm submitted their position, including the claims that the members of the ACIP were unqualified. And for instance, just using, not to make it about me, but using my case as an example, their key reference was the New York Times hit piece written by Davey Alba about 4 years ago. And they didn't bother to actually look up my CV. And so that was one example of the mischaracterization that was used in the lawsuit. Is they didn't make any attempt to actually find out what my CV was. They relied on hearsay evidence based on the New York Times.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I want you to tell people what are your qualifications to serve on this committee, because in my opinion, that was defamatory to say that you were not to suggest that you were not, and others like Dr. Biss and others were not qualified to serve on the committee.
It is defamatory, and the judge basically recited that in his determination. The judge basically accepted the position of the AAP and recapitulated it in his injunction. But let's unpack what, I as I've thought about this, and I talked to Aaron Siri about it, I've kind of changed position a little bit. My initial, of course, I feel insulted, I feel defamed, I feel professionally harmed by this mischaracterization. But as you read through the footnotes and references the judge provides, what the government did in responding to this suit was, among other things, in the case of our qualifications, all they did was they provided the judge a link to the very abbreviated, like 3-sentence characterization of our qualifications on the CDC website. So the government never asked any of us for our CVs, didn't make any serious attempt to characterize our true qualifications. And so, as you know, the judge isn't in a position of doing the diligence. He assesses the evidence placed before him. It's not his job to go get additional evidence. And so he has these defamatory statements coming from AAP in their original suit. And on the other side, in the government's response, there's essentially a vacuum. It's as if the government conceded the AAP's point. And that I believe is the real fault here. Is justice, the Department of Justice seems to have really bungled the response to the AAP lawsuit in this particular court. And so I can extend a little bit of empathy to the judge. yes, he's absolutely partisan. Yes, he's absolutely biased. Yes, he's been absolutely rebuked by the Supreme Court. Yes, he's made a number of really egregious partisan determinations that he's been overturned on and rebuked for. All that's true. But on the other side, the government didn't present a credible alternative in terms of this narrative of us being unqualified. And so what's the judge to do? In terms of my case, it's now, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little long in the tooth. It's pushing now 40 years of continuous work in vaccines development. Of course, there's the original stuff when I was 28. That's the kind of core technology summarized in these patents that I'm all named on. That were the original patents filed typically 1990 to 1991, about a decade before Carrico and Weissman. They got the Nobel Prize. But since then, I have just to hit some highlights. I was associate clinical director of Dynport Vaccine Company, which held the Prime Systems contract for all biodefense vaccines and products for the Department of Defense. I served as clinical director for influenza vaccines for Solvay on a $330 million federal contract to develop a cell-based influenza vaccine. That was relatively recent. I guess it's 8 years ago now. I spearheaded even more recently the response of NewLink Genetics and by extension Defense Threat Reduction Agency in the development of the Ebola vaccine for the West African outbreak that was originally pioneered by Public Health Agency Canada, and moved that forward, and had because NewLink didn't want to carry it forward, I contacted Merck Vaccines. I got it licensed to Merck Vaccines. I wrote the contracts in large part that funded Merck Vaccines product development. That's now a licensed product. I've been involved in hundreds of vaccine clinical trials for Accelovance and other companies. I've done regulatory submissions on vaccine products. I've served as chairperson of multiple NIH study sections focused on biodefense vaccine development. I could go on and on and on. I've won over $8 billion in contracts for my clients relating to vaccines and biodefense. I worked for Eris Global TB Vaccine Foundation, which was one of the early Gates Foundations developing novel tuberculosis vaccine technology. I have a rich, long history of vaccine development. I've even presented twice at the World Health Organization in Geneva on vaccines and on novel vaccine technology. The assertion that I am, long ago I did a little something that doesn't really matter is just, I'm sorry, it's just ignorant.
It is. It absolutely is. I mean, if you're not qualified to advise the government on vaccines, I don't know who is. But I get the impression, Dr. Malone, that they would rather have, I don't know, someone like me, a dumb lawyer, on the panel.
No, what they want, if you read the judge's determination, the subtext is, I'm the one, Judge Murphy, am the one that only, and the one and only, who can determine who is qualified for this, not the Secretary of HHS, not the Director of the CDC, but me, Judge Murphy, in all of my eminence, are the one that's qualified to determine who is competent to sit on this panel. And it would appear that Judge Murphy's determination of who's qualified is the people that the American Academy of Pediatrics wants on that panel, which is kind of the way it existed before. The panel previously was captured by three core structures. The panel was captured by the medical guilds, AAP being among the preeminent. It was captured by the pharmaceutical industry through a variety of pathways. And by the way, pharma capitalizes AAP to a large extent. And the panel was captured by the CDC bureaucracy. And it's the whole purpose of the Federal Advisory Committee Act and FACA committees is to provide key decision makers within the government with independent advice that is not biased by the bureaucracy itself. It's to get an fully independent panel that has no conflicts of interest to be able to provide independent advice outside of the bureaucracy and outside of the lobbyists, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what a FACA committee is supposed to do. Now, it absolutely was not functioning in that way for decades. Bobby changed that. And a case can be made that it then, it was still captured by the CDC bureaucracy and then subsequently by others within the government, let's say. So it's never really been able to be a fully independent advisory committee, even with this current embodiment.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. That's what Bobby was trying to clean up, right? Is to have truly independent judgment that wasn't.
Now, there's something else, Brian, that this audience, particularly the CHD crowd, needs to listen to, and the MAHA crowd. I'm going to say this very cautiously. In my conversation with Bobby just a few minutes ago, there was an individual, I'm not going to name, who was appointed to be in charge of kind of managing all this at the CDC. And the kindest thing I can say is he did not do that well. And a lot of these failures to meet requirements and guidance, that there's merit to some of the claims the judge has made in his injunction, in my opinion. I don't want to go deeper than that, and I'm not an attorney, but a lot of this traces back to this particular individual who's no longer with HHS, who had this responsibility portfolio, and was it active sabotage? Was it incompetence? It's very hard to tell those things apart, but did not perform the duties necessary, and that responsibility had been delegated to that person, and the secretary had assumed that they were working in good faith, but they don't seem to have done the job properly. And so a lot of this can be traced back to a individual that was brought in to delegate this to, who did not do a good job.
Okay, interesting. Well, I don't quite understand. And by the way, just to clarify, like I was saying, no, of course they wouldn't want me. But if I were someone that agreed with the AAP and towed their line, then they'd want someone like me on there, even though I have no qualifications. This isn't about qualifications, education, experience, professional experience. This is about a political agenda, in my opinion. And it has been.
It's even more than that. If you look at the AAP's track record, for instance, their strong advocacy for transgender, gender transition, and transgender surgery, every decision that the AAP makes favors the AAP's financial interests and those of their constituency, which is American pediatricians, their financial interests. You don't see evidence of AAP making any decisions other than those that are in the financial interests of that organization and its constituents. It's not that they're making decisions based on what's best for children. They're making decisions based on what's best for pediatricians in the AAP financially.
Yes, and if you look at their partners page, they have something called like the President's Circle or something. Their top donors. Who's on that list? Pfizer, Merck, Sanofi, I mean, go down the line.
Oh, it's the manufacturers of all of the various vaccines that are on the CDC pediatric schedule.
Right. So if that's not a financial conflict of interest, I don't know what is. Dr. Malone, I don't want to keep you because I wanted to keep this to just about a half an hour because I know your time is short and you have more briefings to get to. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak to the people directly here, to speak to not only our followers, but other people from CHD and others across the internet, to just update them, because I've always loved that about you. I mean, there's a lot of things that I respect, but the fact that you will speak to us directly, that you're not one of these bureaucrats that hides behind a screen, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain sort of thing, and you'll speak to us directly. So I appreciate that. Is there anything else you want to add before we adjourn?
There's the great thing about being honest and straightforward is that you don't have to remember your lies.
That's
so
true.
It makes it really easy. You just tell the truth to the best of your ability. Truth is a complex thing sometimes, but and once you start working with the government or for the government, then there are certain aspects of truth that get firewalled off that you can't really say. But thank you for your kind words. And this is an evolving situation. And this grand sum is that Kirk conveyed information to all of us. I conveyed it to the community through Twitter. And apparently what Kirk heard, I'm choosing my words, and conveyed to us was not the approved message at that point in time. It might become the approved message tomorrow, but right now it's not. And so there was a little bit of a walk back. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
It's the nature of the beast. But then I was transparent about the walk back.
Yes,
so
you were. You were, and I appreciate that. And hey, I know things move fast in DC and actually, or in Atlanta if you're talking about the CDC. But
this is Atlanta is they're roadkill on this one.
Yeah,
this is DC based.
I hope the government appeals it, because even though I know what you're saying about the Supreme Court, there's another avenue. This was a district court judge. There's the First Circuit.
And the problem is that the First Circuit is just all in liberal crazy land too.
I get it, but there's another avenue of appeal in the meantime, okay, while this is ongoing, for them to maybe gather their arguments better.
No, they're very aware of it. It's a hot subject of debate. And they're weighing the pros and cons. And remember that, and this is absolutely at Bobby's core, is the children. And if a loss of face in order to enable a more prompt ability to get back up this little silly committee that has to approve the vaccine for children decisions. If a pragmatic approach to that is the thing that's going to get him back operating sooner, then that's what he'll take. Getting entrenched in face saving and protecting executive privilege and all that kind of language that we always hear. Oh, this is threatening to the executive branch, and so therefore we have to challenge it. That doesn't seem to be carrying a lot of water in this, or weight in this particular mapping out of strategic response. The secretary is focused on how can we get back to doing the mission and keeping kids as quickly as possible.
Yes, amen. That's why I got involved in this too. I don't know if you know, but my son was very seriously vaccine injured when he was just a year old. So, I've been involved in this to really protect not only him, but all children like him, and children to save them from being injured. You know what? again, I want to thank you so much for your time. We will stay tuned. We will stay updated. Everyone, if you want to follow Dr. Malone on X, it's, I believe, at RW Malone MD. Did I get that right?
And Malone.news for the Substack.
Malone.news for the Substack. You can follow us as well as at WTP, WT Patriots USA, and our Substack as well. And I will be posting this interview up on our Substack, so we'll get those clips out. Thank you again, Dr. Malone. I wish you all the best. You've got a tough job. I don't envy you.